setting for real estate investing specifically, but also goal setting for you personally, whether you're a single family investor, a self-storage investor, large scale multifamily, a flipper, or just a business owner, an entrepreneur, whatever it is that you're doing, goal setting is extremely important. It's one of my kind of passion topics. I enjoy talking about it. So as I said at the beginning, if you have questions, something specific that we can do to help you improve, put it in the chat box. Happy to address it and help you out as best we can. Again, we want these webinars to be for all of you that are attending, so you can improve your personal life, your business life to the best of your ability and really take it to the next level. So that being said, goal setting 101. I get this question a lot from real estate investors of what kind of property should I buy? And it really comes down to the first piece, and the most important thing in goal setting is to figure out what you really want. And this is your opportunity to be selfish, thinking about your personal needs, your family needs, when you're trying to figure out what it is that you really want. So there's a variety of businesses, investments, real estate, property types that we can all look at and try to acquire. But if it doesn't fit your particular goal, then you're going to really struggle to get into that space. You're going to struggle to find a good investment to make. And it's probably, if you are one of those people who say, like, I can't find a good deal, there's no good deals out there, it's probably not aligned with your ultimate goal of what it is that you really want. And it takes a little bit of time to think through it. The best exercise that I do, I have my handy dandy pencil here and my notebook, which is always within an arm's length reach of me, because as ideas come to me, as thoughts come to me, I like to write them down and just kind of reflect on it. So when I sit down to think about what it is that I really want and how it's going to help shape my daily, weekly, or monthly activities to accomplish something, I like to sit down in a room without a lot of technology. I may play some like soft music or some study focus music. I've found a good YouTube channel for that. But I'll sit on the floor. I'll lay on the floor. And just kind of think about what it is that I'm looking for. What's that vision? And figuring out what you really want can take a good amount of time, but it's the absolute best exercise and the most important to really get you to buy in to your vision, to your goal, and to have the motivation to wake up early, stay up late. If you are a full-time W-2 employee and you're trying to quit that job, it's going to give you the motivation to really work a full-time second job as you are trying to achieve that goal. So let's kind of go with a couple of goals first to think about the mindset of figuring out what it is that you really want. So if your goal, for example, is to quit your W-2 job and become a full-time real estate investor entrepreneur, that goal to quit your job is a good vision, but it's not a goal that you can make progress towards. And what I mean by that is you kind of have to peel back the onion or take a step further or ask the question of why. And so when I go through these exercises in my head, when I'm thinking about my goals, it would be, why do I want to quit my job? And it's going to get you to actionable items. So why do you want to quit your job? Maybe it's because you You want to be at home more and not going to an office from 9 to 5 and away from your family. So, why do you want to quit your job? You want to quit your job so you can control your time. Why do you want to control your time? So you can be around your family more. You can set your own schedule. You don't have to report in anywhere. And how can you quit your job? And a lot of times, goals do come down to um, either time or financial constraints. And so, if you're figuring out now, you know the true reason of why you want to quit your job. You want to quit your job because you don't want to go to an office from 9 to 5 anymore, or do XYZ type of work, and you are ready to be your own boss. So now the question would be, how do you quit your job? And this is where the goal setting comes in. So, how do you quit your W 2 job? Well, you can quit your W 2 job when you replace your W 2 income with passive income from real estate investments or other investments. And so that would be really figuring out what you want and how you take it to the next level. Let me pause here and just check. There's a question in here in the chat box. Okay. So the question in here is around, when should an investor switch to a preferred equity investment or preservation of capital versus the traditional investment of focus more on appreciation and growth versus preservation. So, again, figuring out what you really want is an individual personal item. That's why I said at the beginning, you have to be selfish in your goal setting when you're doing this exercise. And I'll give you kind of two scenarios to help answer this question. If you are a working professional, you love your job, and you generate enough income to support your family needs or your personal needs, then and you plan to be working for the next several years, that type of person should really be focused more on appreciation and growth. Um, Obviously, making smart investments that will protect your capital, but you should be a little bit more focused on growing your capital versus going into like a preferred equity position where there's less upside in an investment. So, on the flip side of that, person who's in their active working years, they really enjoy what they do on a daily basis, they have enough money to support their needs, you would have a person who may be either retired and is not currently working and may rely more on monthly income from investments to support their life. Or maybe they are a person who dislikes their job. They want to quit their job. And in order to quit their job, they need more monthly income coming in to cover their cost of living. That type of that type of person or persons would probably be more interested in a more conservative investment, that preferred equity piece. And ideally, that preferred equity piece would have a higher monthly cash flow payout compared to an investment that has more future growth potential. So, let me just say, Clay, thank you for the shout out. Your house sounds like mine. Hey, we're all humans at the end of the day. We're in this together. And, ultimately, I think we just do what we can to help each other out and try to be the best humans we individually can, and can be collectively together. So thank you for the shout out, Clay. Jay, I hope that response answered your question as we thought through, again, figuring out what you really want. So if you need more cash flow today to support your lifestyle, then maybe go after that preferred equity piece. If you don't need a ton of cash flow and you want more future growth, then go after those future growth options, to better support exactly what you want. And again, it's figuring out exactly what you want. Another piece, people will say as well, hey, I'm trying to save for college education or my kid's future. um, Again, the question would be, why are you trying to do that? um, how are you going to approach this, and what's your um, ultimate goal? And one of the things that's a great way to accomplish that goal, if you are trying to save for your children, is to just buy a rental house and have the renters pay down the expenses while you build up equity over the next 20 years. And then in 20 years, when the house is paid off or nearly paid off, you can give that property to your children, and have them set up pretty well for a good start to their mid-teens or 30s or whatever it may be. So just, you got to really think through what it is that you really want, and how to get there. So figuring out what you really want is extremely important. It's the foundation base, to have you buy into that. So one of the goals that I had early on was to quit my corporate job. I traveled a ton around the country and around the world, and it was very challenging to um, be away for most of the week and then kind of home on the weekends. And I really looked into the future and was thinking to myself, well, I certainly don't want to be away and trying to raise a family. And that desire, that solving for spending time at home, not having to travel as a requirement, and getting that time with your family was a massive motivational thing for me starting out. And it allowed me to be motivated early in the morning, late at night, to work my regular job that I was doing a few years ago, and also investing in real estate and building the real estate company we have today, and really starting that foundation. So you have to spend time figuring out what it is you really want. Saying you want to just invest in real estate for cash flow is not going to get you anywhere. It's not a deep enough motivating factor. And if you have not purchased an investment property in the past 12 months or ever, it's probably because you have not figured out what you really want yet. So I challenge you to think through what you really want, and, really peel back the onion, or ask why and ask how, in order to develop what it is you really want, because that's going to propel you forward to achieve that goal. And moving on to the second piece about setting your goal. So I like to call this really working backwards to achieve it. So once you set that goal of, hey, I'm going to quit my W-2 job, my goal is to quit my job by the end of 2022. And how am I going to achieve that? I am going to achieve quitting my job by 2022 by having enough cash flow producing assets on a monthly basis that it replaces my W-2 paycheck. So if you are making $10,000 a month from your W-2 paycheck, your goal would be to invest in cash flow producing investments, most likely real estate, ideally multifamily, self-storage, some of these scalable real estate investment options, to generate monthly income that replaces that W-2 job. So how do you work backwards to achieve that goal? Well, if your goal is to generate $10,000 in monthly income, you can do this a couple of different ways. Um, Look at, if you're looking at buying a 10 unit property in your specific market or markets you're interested in, a 10 unit multifamily property, the question would be, how much revenue or cash flow do you generate on a monthly basis from 10 units? The rough rule of thumb that kind of floats around out there is $100 per door per month. So if you have 10 units, you have $100, that's $1,000 a month in cash flow that you would be making. So in order to achieve $10,000 a month, you would need to buy 10 unit properties that each generate $100 in cash flow per month. So if you're looking at it kind of holistically in your market, if one rental property generates $100 a month, you need 100 doors to get to $10,000 in cash flow per month. And so that's how you work backwards to achieve that goal. The goal is now, instead of thinking about needing $10,000 a month, you need 100 doors. And how do you do that? Do you buy one 10 unit property and then repeat that 9 more times? Do you buy maybe 4 25 unit properties? Do you buy 3 33 unit properties? Do you pivot and look at commercial properties? Maybe you can buy one office building that has maybe 5 tenants, and instead of making $100 a door, maybe you're making $1,000 a door because it's a different type of investment. And so now you have one property with 5 tenants that are paying $1,000 a month in cash flow. And so you're making $5,000 a month from just one property. And so what I'm saying is, when you work backwards to achieve your goal, there's a lot of different ways in your market that you can achieve your goal with a different asset class or property type. So if you think about like a storage facility in the sense of making $10,000 a month, let's say each lock, which is how people in the storage industry speak about, instead of having tenants or customers, you have locks. So if each lock makes you $10 in cash flow per month, you can do the math there to see that you're going to need several hundred storage facility, or several hundred locks to get to your $10,000 goal. And so working backwards always helps to identify what property type you should be looking at or investing in. And so, if you're trying to make $10,000 in 12 months to replace your W-2 job, you probably cannot go out and buy 100 single family properties that each generate $100 per month. That would be a very long process, very difficult to buy 100 single family homes in 12 months. You could easily go out and buy one apartment community that has 100 units. And so that's the sort of mindset that you need to slowly think through, not get too caught up in the technology or some of the details, but just take your time to methodically think through, you know, what your true why is, what your real goal is. Set a goal, make it time constrained, make it something that's achievable, and then work backwards, to figure out what you need to do to achieve that goal. So again, if you're trying to generate $10,000 of cash flow, you know, can you buy 100 single family houses? Sure, that's one option. How long does that take? Could you buy one apartment community? Could you buy one storage facility? Could you buy a couple commercial real estate properties? So it's just how you get through it and how you think about things. Um, let's see. As I get into this last point about reviewing progress and updating things, feel free to ask any questions. Use the chat box, use the Q&A box. I'm going to try to monitor those as best we can. And we will spend, a few more minutes here, and then I'll be happy to get to any questions that you all have. One question in here. Is it advisable to keep checking with the lender on an update for your loan application? Absolutely. Whenever you're buying a property, ultimately every activity you are responsible for. So if you're waiting on something from the lender, from a third party report, from an attorney, from the broker, always be following up with them to make sure that your closing stays on track. It's your responsibility to keep closing on track. It's not the brokers, it's not the lenders, and you just have to stay on top of people. Let's see here. Do you think quitting your W-2 is more common and easier with active investing versus passive investing? I know plenty of people who have done it both ways. It comes down to what your goal is. So if you want to quit your job in 3 months, you may need to be more active depending on your specific financial situation, how much capital you have to invest. You may need to be active to quit that W-2 job in 3 months. However, if you say, hey, I want to quit my job in 5 years, you could easily do it actively or passively. Clay, it comes down to like what your starting point is. So if you have no money to invest in purchase assets today, then you probably need to be more active to build up capital to put it to work for you to generate income. So very good. Any last questions, put them in the chat box, put them in the Q&A box, and always check in on your progress when you're trying to achieve these goals. So it's important to, not only keep yourself measurable. So again, if we're talking about replacing W-2 income, you can always check in on how much monthly income you're generating from investments and make sure you're on track to achieve your goal. If things change for some reason, you can always update and change goals. People, I think, sometimes get caught up in like, I've written a goal down, I have to stick to it. And it's okay. That's why I said I use a pencil, and it's got an eraser on top. So if a goal changes, always check in on what you really want. Sometimes your needs may change, your life situation may change, and you may need to pivot from a goal, or completely remove it and put a new goal on there. So, don't get so caught up and rigid in having to do it one particular way or staying focused to accomplish one particular thing. Be flexible. Life changes, things happen, and it's okay to change your goal, but that's the importance of always reviewing your progress. So if you are not making progress, how do you do something different to get there? That being said, we've got another webinar coming up next week. We'll be back to our regular scheduled webinars with one multifamily investor nation and one storage investor nation starting next week. So those emails will come out, and you go in and register for the upcoming webinars when they're available. One more question in here, and feel free to ask any more that you have. As a limited partner, when looking at multifamily deals, when I'm cautious when investing in an opportunity, when a plan when a business plan relies on refinancing the property after a couple of years. I don't think you're being too cautious. That's a completely reasonable item to look at. I would be concerned if the business plan relied solely on refinancing, because the market and the economy are ever changing. So if the only way you're hitting your return for your personal goal is to make sure that that refi happens, then it may not be a great investment for you. So I would just be cautious, evaluate what your needs are, and make sure that the investment fits your goal versus you fitting into the investment, if that makes sense. That is it for today's webinar. Thank you everyone for joining. We've got the self-storage summit coming up this week. Go out, get your ticket for that. Multifamily Investor Nation Summit coming up at the beginning of the year in January. We'll see you there. And again, thank you everyone for joining. The replay will be available on YouTube and in all the right forums. So we will catch you next week for the next week's webinars.